So, good evening, gentlemen. Please state your name for the camera.
Tyrone Thompson, also known as Sati.
Ronald Campbell.
And last but not least,
Keith Mason.
It was in 1975.
okay.
The leader then of the Pepsi Cola, what later became the Music Makers, one Winston Churchill Roll would have introduced the brass to Junkanoo. But before getting to Bay Street, we rushed every Wednesday at the Lowe's Hotel and every Thursday at Holiday Inn. And at that time, he took along 3 trumpet players in the persons of Philip Clark, Virgil Bow, and Ronald Campbell. We started the brass in Junkanoo. Before that, the Saxons superstar had one trumpet player who went to Bay Street in the person of one Audley Camp Jr. He was the lone trumpet player for the then Saxons superstar. But Bay Street came alive in 1975, carrying 700 islands, sponsored by the then Pepsi Cola Group. The group then was led by Winston Churchill Roll. And we called ourselves the Magnificent Seven. And we went to Bay Street, took Bay Street by storm, but at that time it was only trumpet players. We were all from the Royal Ambassadors. The Royal Ambassadors led by then one Mr. Hatman Brown. We had just introduced trumpets to the band. We were a band of all bugle. I don't know if you know. Then the drum and bugle corps, you had the Royal Ambassadors, you had the Boys Brigade, they were all playing bugles. Okay. And we had just introduced trumpets. And so we went on Bay Street, these Magnificent Seven, Virgil Bow, Ronald Campbell, Count Coakley, David, we call Powerpuff, Yogi Gardner, who's now deceased, and Philip Cooper. And so we would have taken, when I say by storm. And yes, that was 1975, so you're talking about 45 years ago. Okay. And what we would have seen now is the revolutionized brass section on Bay Street. You have seen now orchestra on Bay Street, but it all started then back in 1975 with what we've known then as Pepsi Cola, but evolved now to the Music Makers. The name derived from what we give, music. we moved from conch shell and blowing the, I think you played the foghorn, if I remember.
That's T. North.
Okay, yes, North, yes, because he was in charge of the brass section back then, North. And so we were known then for songs like Xanadu and Suck It To You, that was North. And so Bay Street really came alive, and it was the Music Makers, Pepsi Cola, that revolutionized Junkanoo and introduced brass to Bay Street.
Okay. So you said, hold on, just that one clip. Yeah. So, what was the initial idea? What's the lead up? Because obviously y'all had to sort of experiment with this idea before you finally unleashed it to Bay Street.
Yes, sir. It all derived. Winston Churchill Roll was also, he came from the Elks Lodge. Okay. Elks Lodge had a band. We were part of that band, the Elks band at the time. Marching band was very popular at the time. And when you look at the Cacklet band, you looked at the Crusaders Brass band, you looked at the Elks band. We were members of the Elks band. And Vincent thought it was a good idea to introduce this into Junkanoo. So being in charge of the lodge and being in charge of the Junkanoo Group, he emerged part of the Elks Lodge, the brass section, into Junkanoo. That's where it all came from.
Yeah. What I like to add to that, though, I don't know, like Mr. Campbell is saying, they took Bay Street by storm because the amount of brass we had. But brass was there, but it was there very limited. Because as he mentioned, when you hear him talk about the bugle corps, the only thing we used to have, and not every group, because everybody could have blow bugle, but we used to have a bugle. You would find maybe one bugle in one group or two group or like that, but they never played a song. They only played little da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, stuff like that. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, things like that. That's all the bugle got to do for you.
That's all they got to do. That's
Yeah.
who the man call it.
Yeah.
You play that on the bugle.
Yeah.
And we rush it through the crowd.
Right. So having, coming out there with 7 trumpet man and playing, Had a Letter from Miami,
Yes, sir.
and all these popular Bahamian songs that were very popular at that time was like Ronald said, taking Bay Street by storm. But, we used to have a bugle, but it was nowhere like hearing, 7 trumpets coming at you and it just, like he said, it just blew him from there.
I was a sideliner at the time, and I remember watching the Music Makers on Shirley Street and listening to the brass and listening to the music in general, and that is exactly what drew me. That was my initial mindset to say, hey, I want to be a part of this. I used to be a Saxon fan, if they didn't know before that. But the Saxons used to have the bass in Junkanoo. All they used to do was the Saxon. That was their beat. I was on the sidewalk, like I said, and when the Music Makers came around, listen here, the entire Junkanoo arena was jumping. And initially, my thought was, hey, I want to be a part of that. Now, they could take it from there, but I'm sure the crowd reaction was the same.
Yeah, no, this was new. It was different. And so the audience, the cheerleaders.
You like cheerleaders?
When I say cheerleaders, I'm talking about those persons on the.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the fans. This concept was well received. Mm-hmm. And looking 40 years later, we can say then there was no turning back. Mm-hmm. This grew and grew. The second group to adapt to this was the Valley Boys. Perry Christie, who was a part of the Valley Boys, came to the Bliss Band and recruited more than 20 persons to be a part of the brass section in the Valley Boys. 3 of us from the Magnificent 7 were part of the Bliss Band, became a part afterwards. We had persons like Virgil Bow, Phil Clark. They joined the Bliss Band in 1974. I would have joined in 1976. So when Perry Christie came after this fact, well, he couldn't recruit us because we were already a part of the Music Makers. But he took at least 20 persons from the Bliss Band into the Valley Boys. And they became a force then to reckon with.
Yeah. What you all could do, we could do better.
Yes, they became a force. But all of us, all of the brass at that time were Bliss Band members, the Valley versus the Music Makers. And the Music Makers group came from the Royal Ambassadors. The Valley groups, they were more Boys Brigade members.
Okay.
And so these two groups always were rivalries. And so we took it from Clifford Park on Discovery Day to Bay Street, now it was Junkanoo. And so the rivalry continued. So all who were music makers, they were royal ambassadors. All who were Valley boys, they were from the Boys Brigade. But we all were police officers.
Yeah. What I would like to say about that though was, as he mentioned, the shock. The shock. Man, listen, it was like, hey, we had a big advantage.
Oh, yes.
I could remember the face of other Junkanoo leaders, and more specifically Gus Cooper at the time. You know, it was like, wait these fellas, you know,
Serious?
where they get this, you know, like it was a shock, and they had no answer, because you're the first, and I could tell you right after we come off Bay Street, they probably started recruiting brass.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that's what I tell you, there was no turning back. This was a new concept, and not every time something new is introduced, it catches. But this, they say, oh, no, ain't no going back. We're moving forward with this, and you could see what it blossomed to today. No brass, no Junkanoo, no Bay Street. You must get your brass. And then it revolutionized then to the arrangers. You see, the arrangers then now became key. Those persons who was arranging music for these various groups, the Corey Cartwrights and the Coopers, they started to arrange. So we were battling now with who can arrange the best and produce the best sound. Because that's how much it revolutionized Bay Street. Those arrangers would get together and they would go in their small settings and arrange. And if you hear, I had a letter today, and the way we played it yesterday, it was more than not a letter. Now you have an email. Talk to me.
Yeah. But honestly, it was inevitable. I mean, it was coming. I just feel we were in the right place, Keith, at the right time. Yeah. Because, like Ronald rightly said, they were already in the mix with the Elks Lodge, and so Churchill had his hands right on the button.
Yeah, yes,
and he pressed it.
Yes.
And so, but I think it was inevitable. We had Bugle. And it was just taking it to another level.
We could also add to that fact that for many years after that initial introduction, the music makers swept best music for many, many years. Even though the Valley gave us some competition here and there. Every other parade, if not concurrently, best music makers, best music. And that went on for years and years and years until we ran into some financial difficulties and we were able to fall down a little bit.
So y'all entered 75 as the Pepsi Cola. What is it? Pepsi Cola Boys?
Pepsi Cola, yes.
Okay, Pepsi Cola. So when did the name change take place?
The name change took place, I would say, either the following year.
76
the year
is 76
after,
thereabout, because I took a break in say 76, because in 76 December I was in Belize College, and so when I returned to the group in 77, now they were the music makers, and so being the music makers, we had to maintain that name, music makers. The name wasn't for free. We had to represent music. Mm-hmm. And so when I returned after coming out of Belize College in 77, when I came back to the group, it was now the Music Makers. And like I said, we were certainly a force to reckon with. That because they had to come to the Bliss Band. In fact, before going to the Bliss Band, he came to my house. Okay. He came to my house and tried to recruit me. I said, baby, make us, boy. He make us all the way. Yeah. And then he found himself to the Bliss Band. But he came 3rd Street first to recruit the makers.
Yeah. Right. The music makers also, we must say, in 76, I'll just add this, history should show that there was a meeting being held in which Preston Evans, Lord Frog, our lead drummer at the time, was a part of. And they were at that time, they were trying to name the group. And it's my understanding that he got up and said, listen here, what is the Music Makers best known for?
The group, Pepsi Cola group.
What is this group known for? And everybody around saying,
music,
creating music, good music. So that's how the name came about.
So that's why
the Music Makers. So
that's why the music makes it like in the crowd when music makers come down Bay Street, everybody chant music.
Yeah.
So that sort of comes from.
Everybody says that now. Yeah. You know, but
was that was that?
But let me. I want to say that before the brass enhance our music, like Keith rightly said, the Saxons had this bass beat, this slow rush. The Music Makers was always a little faster than the rest of the groups at that time. Our music was always faster. The other groups was a little bit slower. You had the Saxons, you had East Bay, you had the Valley, and all of them rush a little bit slower than we did. Because one thing Vincent Churchill Roll did with us, boy, listen, we was well trained to rush. He used to make you practice. As a matter of fact, you had the audition. You had the dance. Yeah. He was a cultural I don't know.
He was a rusher.
Yes, sir. And we had to rush and man, you gotta lift your leg. He tell you gotta lift your leg. You gotta turn from side to side. We was a rushing group.
And T, what I could add to that is that every group had its own sound. You didn't have to see them. If you heard them, you could identify the group. But that's the Makers. Mm-hmm. You don't see them yet, but you know them.
Makers coming.
Saxons, you know them.
Yeah.
The Valley, you know them. You don't have to see them. But you listen, mm-hmm. And you could tell who was who. And it's amazing. It was the same thing with the youth bands that were in the street. Once you hear them, you would tell who it was because they all had a defined sound. And if you were a Junkanoo, then you knew the group without seeing them. But the music makers were so distinct because they were known for music, and their beat was defined.
Yeah. So what are y'all, now looking back to now? Obviously, because we haven't had a Junkanoo parade in almost 3 years. Well, I don't know if they're gonna have one at the end of this year, but it's been almost 3 years since the last episode of Bay Street, like I like to call it. But what do you think about the legacy y'all have left as a group on this culture of ours and how it looks now and how it has progressed? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna let Keith answer that because we haven't been really as competitive as we was, Keith.
Yeah, well, the Music Makers historically has a great legacy. And even over concurrent years into the late 80s, we were known for great costuming and good music, but great costuming. Like I alluded to a little earlier, we fell down a bit when other groups realized how good we were with music and costume, and they now had to up their game, which meant they went out and got more sponsorship. The Makers really, at that time, for a long time in the 80s were carrying themselves with very minimal sponsorship, period. And we really were holding on to, I think, the great past in anticipation of keeping this group alive, and once again showing that the legacy, the determination, the drive of the members, and it was a community spirit thing that kept the group going. We have fallen, like I said, over recent years, but we are continuing to push on to try and bring that back and create a community that once again would be proud to see their young people, because we're talking about music makers that dominate with young people under their 20s and under 25. So the music makers, when they were most dominant, were between, I guess, 18 and the members at that time, 25 to 30.
Yes, sir.
So most of them, a lot of them, have since passed on. May their souls rest in peace. I be remiss.
Too. A lot of other groups.
Yes, but I'm saying, and particularly talking about the music makers, we have lost a lot in terms of that. I would be remiss if I weren't to mention my dear friend and brother Sammy Thompson, whom was a great leader of this group when I came on board, and he to me today was at that time one of the best artists and Junkanoo constructors there were. So the music makers is just continuing this journey, and we're hoping to get back to the time where we could accept the excellence that we once had. I hope that helps you a bit. But
what we would have seen in music through what happened with the music makers in 1975, I would have joined the force in 1976. I became the director of the police band. The previous director of the police band now, my student, Superintendent Satanaldi, came through the music makers. He's now the director of the police band. So you see, Theodore Campbell, my nephew, who's the director of the Urban Renewal Band, came via the Crusaders Brass Band and the music makers under my tutelage. And I can go on and on. All of the directors of the urban band, youth bands, came from under my tutelage through via the music makers. So you see what developed from then to now. It's just unbelievable. I don't know if you have time. I certainly don't. But if we began to tell you what this program would have done through the years, it's like I said, it was no turning back. It was no turning back. We took music serious. And these experiences that we would have had in our youth bands and through the Junkanoo groupings, it's just unbelievable. And you cannot. It's a part of history and music in this country that you cannot just look over it as if it was just something to look over. No. We would have done well. We would have done well. Yeah. Trust me, we would have done well. Yes. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the history that we started then and how we see it flourishing now. For it have developed too. Somebody's going to ask one day where it all started. And we'll have to tell the story. And I'm so happy for this opportunity to begin to tell the story.
So let's just have y'all quick through on the thoughts, and I think that's a wrap right Okay.
Yeah.
So, last thoughts? If you all want to give last thoughts for the
But I think that was a good wrap up.
All right, thank you all so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
It certainly was a pleasure.
I hope we excite you all to become music makers, man.
It seems to be semi-cool.
Okay.